How is business going?
Market's good.
Market's good?
I have 2 listings that are sitting and sitting and sitting.
Oh,
So
so
what do you-
market's not
what do
so
you-
good in
yeah.
some markets.
So how long have they been sitting?
4 months.
4 months. What kind of price adjustments have you done?
One of them's almost down 100,000.
Okay.
On what price?
In Heber, it's at 898 now.
What's the feedback that you're getting on terms?
And it's really nice, but this isn't what people have been saying to me about. There's new houses coming up at like 799.
So they're saying.
New base price.
I know,
You gotta be careful with that, because
Yeah.
just love to say
Yeah.
base price.
but I think people just see it. And there's one closet that's like a Kardashian closet, but it takes a room. So it's 5 bed, 3 bath, but one of the rooms is like this fancy bougie closet, so it kind of eliminates the room. So it could be a cost to some people, and other people love it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
How many showings are you getting a week?
I do an open house every week, and I
That's
do.
not what I'm asking, how many showings?
No.
Still a price one.
Yeah, I get people walking in every week. And then my other one is at Canyons, but it's a hot mess. Cause they're redoing all the outside and siding. So like last time I had a showing, I had to build a plank because they removed the stairs. So I understand that one's a
So
disaster.
when you're calling to get your feedback, from the agent, what are the questions that you're asking that agent?
What their clients thought of it. And with the one in Canyons, because it is a disaster, it's a hot mess.
I'm not talking about that.
Oh, the other one. No, I don't get any showings. I've done the Heber open house, with the realtor tour. And the realtors there have said it's not priced horribly. I did get one feedback that for the price, she shouldn't have a dining room table that looks like that. Which I get, but,
That's not keeping somebody,
Uh-uh.
we're not selling the table, somebody from showing.
Mhm.
So we're still at price. Have you done a group open house with other Heber agents in the area?
yeah, they do it once every Tuesday and then they won't let you do it again if you've already done the group open house on your tour.
So a group open house is where all of us, I'm doing one this weekend, we'll let this go. The agents all hold theirs open from 11 to 1 or 11
No, I have
to
not.
2 on Saturday for the public, because the public is more likely to come to a house that they can go see 2 or 3 or 4
Mhm.
than see 1. So we may want to arrange a group open. Typically, you have to arrange that 2 weeks in advance and be careful because you have to make it.
Yeah.
I would try that one. The other one's been on the market how long?
Right around the same time, about 4 months, but it's been under construction, so
Will that be done?
September. So we'll have to do like a big,
And focus on Heber right now.
Mhm.
Anybody else got a listing that's hanging? Just sitting.
Ours is, I think it's a price thing, maybe. We are getting some showings.
And what questions do you ask the agent after showing us?
Yeah, similar to what Cheyenne said, we asked them, what they thought about it, what did your clients like, what didn't they like? They tend to not like that it's a little bit dated. We're waiting for somebody to fall in love with the view. If we're gonna get the best price out of somebody to fall in love with the view.
The other question that I always ask after, did they like? The other question I ask is, I really appreciate your expert opinion, you're out showing in this price, what are these lines? How are we comparing to the other houses you're showing?
Yeah, have you looked at any other properties, or do you just say, how do we
Just say
compare?
what I just said.
Yeah, fair enough.
That seems to work. And then a follow-up question to them on that is, what do you predict our sales price will be on Wednesday? And I like to be able to share that because often it's me saying it's priced too high. So it's really great if I can say, I was talking to Cheyenne, who showed it recently, and she said compared to the others that she saw, she really thinks the price needs to be X.
Yeah, because then it's not you, it's.
Well, it's just a nice, boost to what I've already been saying. Sometimes they need that other additional opinion, and probably it's the same as what I've been saying. But I'm really particular about the questions that I'm asking, because the reason I'm asking is to help me get it to the point where it can sell.
Yeah.
Okay, what I like and didn't like was good, because maybe there's something in there that I could change. But more importantly, where are we compared to everything else they're showing? Because no agent is out showing a house. They're out showing 5 or 7. And how are we comparing to that? Okay? All right, so we've got John's on now. We've been waiting for John. Now that John's here, we could probably start. Andy's on. Thank you all very much for being on the Zoom. I'm Lee Stern. We're going to be talking about how to appeal property taxes in Summit County. So let's just talk some general things before we get into paperwork. Have you had any calls from your people saying, oh my gosh, my taxes just went up?
Yeah, in fact, I had one just last week, so the timing was perfect. But I went and looked, and the 2 most recent solds that were 100 square feet larger. You know, and what I did was I took the 2, they're very, very similar, and took the price per square foot, added them together, and then took an average, and it came out to exactly what they assessed it at.
So they may have done exactly what you did.
Sounds like it.
When were those sales? When did those sales
They
occur?
came up, so they, I think it goes to 6 months on, if you don't change it, is that right on the, I think on our MLS, I think it's a 6-month window that they typically default to.
So the window you want to look at the hardest are my 4 favorite months, which are September, October, November, December, sold during that quarter. Because supposedly the county is assessing that value as of January 1. So those would be their most recent sold comps.
Gotcha.
Okay? And so this is a good example of how many times I look at the comps after they've called in and sent me their information. And I have to call them and say, hey, unfortunately, they're not wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of my response after looking at it.
Exactly, exactly. And happy to look at it again next year, because it can change year to year to year. So happy to do that, but you know, the good news is, if you and I were to put it on the market right now, we'd be putting it on the market at more than what they're assessing you. And so congratulations on owning a good investment. That's really what my conversation is for the people that I cannot protest.
Well, and so many have in the last couple of years been reassessed finally. I mean, we've been skating along forever at the same rate, and the houses haven't been. Then they went in and did everybody, it looks like, and it went up. Mine went up $1,000 2 years ago, and then another 1,000 again. So, but I think they've just caught up, and in looking at things, it's hard to really argue.
And in many cases, you won't be able to. But the fact that you are willing to try, I was telling my group yesterday, is I think about, because I've been doing appeals for 40 years. And so a lot of my people, they have me do it every year. I mean, last year, Richard Gordon called or had me do his, and I called him up and I said, well, Richard, I went to the hearing. We were able to appeal it. So that's the good news. The bad news is you can take Claudine, his wife, out to lunch on the money I made you, but it'll probably have to be McDonald's. It was $32. And his response was, yeah.
Yeah. Just something.
Exactly. His is on the principle of just something, because honestly, many years I've saved him $200, $400 easily. My average over the 40 years is a $400 savings. And there have been clients that I've been able to save them $2,000 or $3,000 in a single year. So you just never know. And I look at I have 7, I look at all of my 7, I protest typically some of them every time. I've got a handout up here by Nancy. And we can make more handouts when we're done if we need to, and in the meantime, you can share. But bottom line is, there are lots of my people that I had to say no to. Now, this year I have an interesting scenario. In Tooele County, which probably none of you have any of your database in Tooele County, but I have quite a few clients in Tooele County. Last year, the voters failed to pass a bond for schools, $51 million bond for some new schools. So this year, unless you are in Tooele City proper, all the rest of Tooele County, they're seeing a $2,500 hike or more on their taxes. So I mean, this morning I had one from Sandina. Last week I had one from Michelle. I'm counting on every single one of my Tooele County people calling me to attempt to protest their taxes. So when we're protesting taxes, we're not really protesting taxes. We're appealing the value they gave us, appealing the value they assigned, okay? We can't change the mill rate, can't change the tax amount. We can only appeal the market value that they had. And there are only a few exceptions to that appealing. So I want to talk about those, and I put them in here in case it's page 4. So tax relief, the page that you have here, tax relief. So, and again, in Park City, these are highly unlikely, but I want to cover them with you just in case. If any of your people fall under the circuit breaker program, those are people that are 65 or 66, and who are earning less than $40,840 a year. So in other words, if you happen to know somebody who has lived in, say, Old Town, in that same house for 50 years, and they're living on Social Security, okay? House has probably never been touched, but it's still pretty original. They might fall under the circuit breaker program, which means that they get a rebate back that's good size. It's probably $1,200 or $1,800. I put it in my newsletter last month, and I can't remember what the amount is. But so if you know of anybody that fits that, but they're going to be rare in Summit County having somebody on that small an income. But it would probably be somebody who's 60, 70, 80 years old, living in an old house, maybe in Midway or Heber, you know, in that same house they've always lived in, but is living on Social Security. And then if you've got anybody that is 65, that has hardships and income is 49, that would work. If you've got somebody in military duty, but they've got to have 200 plus days deployed outside of Utah, that then they get a waiver on theirs. Yeah.
Forgive me, I'm a little bit late, but, is this for Wasatch and Summit or what are
This would be
they?
both. This would be all of Utah
Thank you.
on these particular ones. They're all of Utah. And then any veterans with disabilities. And most of your veterans, I've found, most of my veterans do know that they get that discount. So they're not surprised about the disabled veteran one. But active duty deployed, that's a big deal. Wife is sitting there with the kids, and he's off in wherever, not Afghanistan anymore, but someplace. They could fall into that group. And the one that nobody knows about is the circuit breaker. But that one honestly is less likely to be happening in Summit and Wasatch counties based on your price point, income base, things like that. But think about your people that are 70 and 80 years old, might be living on Social Security, grandmas and grandpas. They might fit into that. Those are really the only exceptions to us appealing the value. Okay, now you have to appeal the value, the latest, your deadline date is September 15th. So Josh and I were talking at the beginning, and I said, how many of you, and I'll ask the question again because there's more than 3 times as many as were in the room a minute ago. So how many of you have started making calls to your VIP club, your sphere of influence, to say, Hey Cheyenne, it's Lee, did you get your tax notice in July? Do you need my help in appealing the taxes? Because you know that's something I do free of charge from my VIP club members. How many of you started making those calls? Okay, so those are the calls I'm making right now. Josh said, well, I'm going to send out a mass email. I'm making this call. It dawned on me when I was teaching yesterday. Last year I had hearings for, I think, 6 people. That's an all-time low for me. There have been years that I've had 45 hearings. Nice thing is the county will do the hearings one right after another. So I just go and plan on spending the day. And every 10 minutes we change this. Okay. So they're really good to work with that way. I don't have to go 40 times. It dawned on me though that I get an unfair number of referrals from the people in my VIP club whose taxes I protested, whether I'm successful or not. They think that it's just cool that I'm willing to do this for them free of charge and try to help them save money. I don't think that's easy to get across in an email. That seems not personal in an email. Okay? You
So
know,
you're looking at it as a lead generation tool.
oh,
essentially.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, at the end of when I'm making the call after the hearing, whether I got it or didn't get it, or even at the end when I, say I've sent it in, they say, I can't thank you enough, and I go, oh, you can. That's really what they say, I can't thank you enough for doing this, and I go, oh, but you can. I want you to promise me, the next time you hear of somebody who's thinking about buying, selling, or investing in real estate, that you will not give out my name and number. You will pick up the phone and call me with their name and number. Because then there's 100% chance I can talk to them and go, can you do that for me? And they go, absolutely. So it is my teaching moment. And like I said, I'm sitting there, Richard Gordon. So true story, I listed Richard's house. And then I said to Richard after a couple of months, I said, Richard, I'm going to release this listing and you need to sell it FSBO. It's the only way that you're going to come out on top and make the money you need to move on to this next chapter. And so we did. So then the person who came to buy the house, Denise and Tony, he referred them to me to sell their existing house. I've sold 5 houses for Denise and Tony. Richard Gordon is responsible for that. He's a seller whose listing I released at my suggestion. And I closed 5 deals because of Richard. So do I mind protesting in taxes? He comes to all my events. He's a real talker. I get referrals from Richard every year. So my biggest source is actually from people I've called and said, hey Sharon, did you get your tax notice? Do you need my help in appealing the taxes?
So what's the work that you have to put into it?
We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk. It's the main part of the class.
Makes me nervous.
It's not nervous.
That I'll be overwhelmed. I might be overwhelmed.
So I always say to people who tell me that they may get overwhelmed, and I get a lot of them, and I always have. I live a very busy life that's very scheduled with a lot of stuff. My guess is I can stack my schedule to your schedule at 71 years old, and you're gonna get no sympathy from me about what you're doing.
Probably.
And so rather than automatically going, I don't know if I can handle that. This is such a simple thing to do, and you'll discover that. Change your attitude before we even get to that part of it all. I think this is something I can do, right? Because I think it is something you can do. I've scheduled 2 days, one at the end of September, one at the end of August, and another one on about the 10th of September. How is that late? Okay, so I set aside 2 days to work on this, and probably half days. This year, it may not even be that many because, as you said, there's a lot I'm gonna have to say no to. I can do that very quickly. Okay. So we'll get to that. But the first step is you need to be calling all your people right now and making this offer. It costs you a day and a half in the life of your year to help them. And you'll get a lot of referrals from it, okay? So September 15th is your deadline. Mark that down, okay? And so if I think about it, here we are, what's the date today, the ninth? Ninth. Okay, so I've got what, 15 days, not even. I've got maybe 12 days left of this month, work days. How many people are in your SOI?
Depends what you call SOI.
Well, you know what I call SOI.
Yeah, all the database. About 1,200.
Okay, so that means you have 100 a day to call, because you put it off till now. See what I mean?
Ouch.
Yeah,
That's on you, Josh.
yeah.
It's all right.
So this is why this is my quarterly call. So I've been making this call since June and saying, next month, you're gonna get your notice. In July, I was like, so this month, you're gonna get your notice. And August is, hey, did you get your notice? Because it takes me a quarter to get through all of mine at a manageable number. You've now, if you've not started, put yourself at a very
I'm a pickle.
overwhelming situation right now.
Email.
But wouldn't you, in that situation, wouldn't you then prioritize your database to
would,
those you
Yeah.
bought and sold property with?
Thank you,
as opposed-
Nancy. That's exactly what I would do. And by the way, the ones that you sold this in 2023, I call them first, because those people can either hand me a copy of their settlement statement, or I can go to the title company and get it for them. Or they can hand me a copy of their appraisal, or I can call their lender and get a copy of it for them. And I just have to fill out a form and attach that. And that is what they'll say the value is. So those are my easiest ones, are my 2023 closings. They're the first ones you want to call. Okay, and then after that, I want to call my A or A pluses in my database. Now, I'm going to get through to the 1,200, so who are the people that honestly know me, like me, and care that I do well? Those are the ones I'm gonna call first. Okay, they're my A people, okay? All right, so what happens is everybody in your SOI, you don't have this, everybody in your SOI got a notice like this, and I brought enough of, this is from my class yesterday, and I didn't have a Park City one since I don't do business up here. So if you can just pass those back. So everybody gets a notice like this from their county. Okay, that's a couple of pages in on the backside. Share with each other if you don't have enough to cover everybody, please. This is not one, this is a Salt Lake County. You don't even need this one. It's just for the guy in the back needs to move forward or he's not gonna get shared with. So this is what I need my sellers to send me, is the Wasatch or Summit County notice of assessment. I don't want them taking a picture of it and texting it to me. They try, no matter how big I make it, it's little. I can't read it. So I need them to email a copy of this to me. Okay? And on there, it will show what they're saying the market value is on the property. And this, like I said, I'm sure this looks just like your one in Wasatch or Summit County. It's just, maybe you're not green, maybe you're red. I don't know. Okay? This value is the one I'm protesting. Now, in Summit County, for sure, you tell me if it's true in Wasatch County. There's a big credit if it's your primary, okay? In Salt Lake County, we have a credit also. It's not as big as yours, but our prices aren't as big as yours, okay? I don't care what that is. That has nothing to do with anything. So don't let that throw you off. All we care about is the market value they set, okay? For 2024. That's what we want to try to protest. or appeal the value, okay? So they have to send that to you. And I just have a little file folder side of my desk, and all of mine are going right in there. Not looking at them, just throwing them in there. Then at the end of August, on my first day, I will pull that out and I will begin to do the work now to see, can I protest them or can I not? Okay. So I'm going to do exactly what you did. I'm going to go back and look at sold comps and try to come up with ones that are the cheapest ones I can find. Okay?
For that period of, it ends December.
September, October, November, December, those are my 4 favorite months. That's really what they're looking at because supposedly they established the value on January 1. So this would be the ones that are most likely, which by the way is not a bad time for us because rates were high. So we'll see some lesser pricing at that time. I want to try to find them that are close by. If I can find them in the same subdivision, that's wonderful, but I can't always. So I may have to go outside. So one of the girls in my class yesterday said, Lee, I've got one that's right below the Capitol. And it's a hoarder's house and she's done nothing to it. And I'm like, well, you're not gonna find anything right below the Capitol that looks like that. Those have all been redone. So I said, drop it down, go down Wall Avenue, hit those streets there and get into Marmalade. Because those will be those same smaller houses and some of those have not been done. Pull comps from there. You'll be able to use those. Okay, so that's what she's doing. So it's not right there, but it's not far. It's, you know, it's less than a mile down the hill, half a mile down the hill. Okay, so you won't find exact. Make sure that you're comparing as much as you can apples to apples. So if I have a 2-car garage house, I'm always going to try to find other 2-car garage houses. If I'm a 3-car, I'm gonna find 3-car, etc. Because an appraiser only gives you like 5,000 a bay, which is ridiculous because a buyer will give you about 20,000 more for a bigger garage, a 3 versus a 2, but an appraiser won't. So making an adjustment is going to be hard for me to defend when I get to the hearing. We'll talk about the hearing in this one. Okay, so try to find apples to apples. I don't do much square footage wise. That is a way to do it. It's not necessarily a wrong way to do it by any means. I look at the pictures and try to find ones that have the same kind of finishes, things like that for me. That's worked for me. But square footage would be the other if you can't find ones that are really similar. You may have to share. Do we have a spare anywhere? If not, we'll get another one at the. Yes.
Does it help using your hoarder house example to take a couple pictures of the interior and exterior of the house?
Absolutely.
Because I used that argument last year, just for my own personal one. I'm like, this one sold with these appliances. Mine sits on blocks. You know, I kind of went back and forth on just a few items to say, yeah, you can tell this has not been renovated where the neighbors had.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, taking pictures is a good idea. I will, if I look at these and I can't get them, I'm gonna make I'm sorry, I looked and we cannot find it. So the good news is that your house is worth what they're saying it's worth. But I can't help you on taxes this year, but I'd love to help you again next year. And the best news is, if we put it on the market today, we sure would not be putting it on for that amount. We'd be putting it on for more, so congratulations. I'm making that call a lot of the time. But for those that I can find, now let's go into what we do on a deep dive. So photos are one of them. Absolutely are one of them. And photos of your house interior is a good place to start. There are lots of times that I do an appeal and I send it in. And I get a call from the the people at the county saying, you know, we're looking at it, we'd be willing to consider it more thoroughly based on your comments, if we could go and see the property. If my house has been remodeled and is wonderful, I'm going to say, let me ask the sellers, and then I'm gonna call the sellers and say they wanna see the inside. And I think you should tell me that you don't feel comfortable with having a stranger come in your house. Would you say that for me, please? And they say that for me, and then I call and say, by the way, if they're not comfortable with you coming in the house. That may or may not get me, a lower, but if they came in the house, I know we wouldn't get lower. If I have one that's not remodeled, absolutely pictures, order house, absolutely, I'm submitting them right from the get-go. Okay, and those are the ones I typically don't really ask to see. Okay. And I've had preppers, I had a prepper last year, Hans and Trini. They wouldn't even let me take pictures. They're so anti-government that it was like, no, skip protesting, it's okay. They wanted me to protest, and then they would do that just because they did not want the government to know what the inside of the house was.
You still got the brownie point making the call.
Absolutely, and they called me this week, on the taxes again, so this was last year, so they've already called me this week. So anyways, pictures are a big deal. I also, when I pull up my comps, so let's pretend this is one of my comps. I'm gonna look at the pictures on the MLS, and I'm gonna start writing on this thing. You know, they have an extra bathroom downstairs, or their bathrooms remodeled downstairs. And I'm gonna say, updated or remodeled bath, plus $12,000. And I'm gonna put numbers down and make adjustments, kind of like I was an appraiser. And I'm gonna do it on here. It's not necessarily gonna look really lovely, but I'm gonna do it on here. I'm gonna write on here, you know, current homeowner is a hoarder, see pictures attached, original condition. Ours might be fair compared to theirs being good or excellent in condition. I'm gonna fill this thing with notes. It really helps me in the hearing when I've sent all this in, because the person I'm sitting across from at a hearing, so just trying to kind of give you this idea. I have to find 3 comps, so comps, minimum 3. If I can find more, fine. I typically don't. So my 3 lowest comps, all of my notes, we'll go through the paperwork in a minute, we submit all that, we send that in, email it or mail it. Then when they call me for the hearing, they give me typically about a 10-day to a month notice of the hearing. And then I'm going to, at that time, I get a copy of what they used. So they may have used exactly the same ones that you use, but they may have used different ones. So I get those, and now I start looking at those to decide, can I defend that? So for example, last year, on one of my taxes are established value as of March or January 1st. He was using an April closing. And I said, dude, you already had established value, take that one out. You're telling me I need to go in the last year and there's another rule. How can that be fair to a homeowner that you're using forward sales? Now, I had used a December under contract that closed in January. I had done that. So had he. But the April one, I said, according to what I read as far as my comparables, that's a 2024 mid-year value.
Yeah.
So which of these other ones should we take to replace that? Because I had 3 others that would work. And 2 of them he hadn't used. So we got to replace that with that.
Are they required to, if you ask for the comps that they use, they're required to tell you?
They send you the comps even without requirement.
Oh, okay.
Once you have your hearing established and you confirm that you're gonna make the hearing, they then send me the comps that they used. And so I do have, Cheyenne, another day's work that I have to do, next year. Because that'll all happen, not in 24, that's gonna happen in 25. Correct. So I'll set aside a date to kind of go through and look on the MLS at all of those comps, the conditions of those. I'll start making adjustments on theirs. I'm looking at the dates. I'm looking at my comps versus their comps to make sure that we really have the best three comps.
I'm gonna, I came in late, I might have missed it. Probably to repeat it, but, I was told that they'll only use comps that closed January 1st and after for 2024. Is that correct?
No, the value for the home that they establish is the value is established on January 1. So they don't have any of those. So you have to go backwards a year.
So it's all of 2023?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you say prioritize September.
September through,
Yes.
And that tends to be our quieter part of our market.
yeah,
So you might more likely find lower values.
Yeah. and they're most current. Because they establish, it's like you doing a CMA for a property.
Okay.
Are you using souls from a year ago? Or are you trying to use the most current souls? And the date you're doing the CMA, or the date the county is doing the CMA is supposedly January 1st. So let's use comps that fit that. They carry the most weight. It's not that they couldn't take one, not that I couldn't take one. But the most value is supposed to be held on that quarter, those 4 months before
Okay.
that. Okay,
So really you're going back a year, roughly.
I'm going back 4 months first.
I'm sorry.
I can't find them in that, and I'm gonna go another 2 months. And, you know, if I had to, I would. I don't think I've ever had to. I don't think I've ever used one in the first half.
Okay.
Always been, but I have occasionally, like this last year, I remember on when I went, they went under contract on that listing in December, early December, and they didn't close it till like January 10th or something. And I said, so this one was already under contract and we now know what the value is. Or didn't close till January, but I used that because he did sell it. Okay. And he was fine with that.
Good question. So, if you have a property very close by in the same subdivision that did sell for quite a good money, but you don't want to use that because it looks too good, can you just ignore it?
Well, you can ignore it for the moment that you're doing this work.
That's right.
But I'm gonna tell you, when you go to the hearing, the person at the hearing did not ignore it. They would have taken that one for sure.
If they had it, non-disclosure state.
They'll have
Yeah, the secretary's always a member of the MLS.
it. They'll have it. And here's why they'll have it.
They will.
Here's why they'll have it. Tell me your name.
Sorry.
Sarah. Here's why you know the habits are. Because the person at the hearing table almost always is an appraiser that they've hired for a temporary job to do this. So does the appraiser have access to the MLS? And if he's not an appraiser, he's an attorney.
Well, up here, they just have, they're members.
They're
Some
just
in
members.
Washington County are affiliate members and somehow they get the data.
They get it all. So anyways, they'll have it. So I can ignore it for my appeal. But when I go to the hearing, I need to come prepared to defend why I didn't use that one. So in other words, it was a nicer finish work than ours. Or somebody had died in the family and it was a sale, or why would it be more? That would be why it would be less.
They were in a hurry to get their money, so they sold it to the wall.
Yeah, that doesn't work. But you know what I mean? I've got to defend that because I'm pretty sure it's going to be used.
Sure.
So,
They had really nice art on the walls and it made it look great. They actually took down the art when they sold it, well, after they sold it.
stop it.
They conned the people into thinking.
Yeah, or they sold that one furnished. And if you saw in these photos, you saw their furniture. They had luxe furniture. That's why that sold for more. That might be one up here.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so you have to be prepared come hearing time to have to defend it.
Great.
Okay?
Do we actually do hearings in Wasatch and Suffolk County?
Yes.
I didn't have to go to the hearing, I just mailed it in.
So let's talk about that. That's a great question. The question was, do you have to go to a hearing? So on your form somewhere, it should have a thing that says, are you waiving your right to a hearing? And checkbox, don't ever waive your right to a hearing. So what happens is, we send in the comps, they have someone look at it. If they agree with us or they're pretty darn close, I get a phone call from them and it says, hey, we agree with you, you're fine. If they're close, they'll call me and say, hey, we're pretty close. We agree that we were a little high, but we think you're too low. How about this? And I'll say, let me check with the homeowner. And I'll call the homeowner. And, you know, if we're close, fine. And we'll say this, then you wouldn't have a hearing. But if I call them and say, no, we think we're right, then they will assign a hearing. And each county can be different. Mine's in a conference room at the county building, across from me, an appraiser, an attorney, and we go through it all and look at his comps, my comps, her comps and my comps, and we defend. And I don't know what the results are until much later, not that day by any means, because it's not that person's decision. It goes to somebody else. Now, in Rich County, one of the girls yesterday in the class did one in Rich County. When she did the hearing, it was somebody from the assessor's office and 3 people on the Rich County city. So it was like farmers. Yeah, and she got hers. They don't know, but that the hearing was actually, and they made the decision right there. Okay? Yeah.
So when you're sitting there and you have all of your comps, do you like email all of this in, or do you print off like all of the pictures of the inside and whatnot of the?
So when I'm sending it in, I'm gonna email it all or mail it all, but I print it all the pictures, everything. You're absolutely right. Anything that's gonna help me say, ooh, look at this pitiful bus. That's what I wanna say. Oh yeah, this is not as good as you think it is. That's what I wanted to say. All of that gets sent in. When I go back then, months later, I send all this in before September 15th. I typically begin to hear about my appeals after taxes are due and paid. So it's end of November, December, January. That's when I start hearing from them saying, we're willing to do this, or we're willing to give you a hearing. Question on?
Hey, it's Lainey. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. I was gonna say, I protested ours for my personal home last year. And what I did is I sent in all the information and the forms and my comps. And then I got a reply from them saying that they agree, well, they lowered, the market value. But do I still want to appeal? Like, do you agree with what we lowered it to? And so what I did was I was happy that they lowered it, but I decided, I'm going to still appeal. And we did it all online. It was a Zoom call.
You can.
And with the Zoom call, again, I resent more documents to prove, why I thought it should be reduced even more. So
Lainey, quick question for you.
Yeah.
Because I have the ability in Salt Lake County to also do it virtual, do a Zoom. I like in person because I'm old. Well, it's more, I can build a relationship with that person, and honestly, that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm good in person. But when you did that, Lainey, did they send to you prior to your Zoom hearing? Did they send you the comps that they had used?
Well, I was going to say also first, I didn't get calls. They sent me an email, I think.
Okay.
No, a document that said we reduced your market value 200,000. And then I'm trying to remember, I don't feel like I got the comps that maybe I did. No, I did get it because I remember looking through it and saying, these aren't appropriate comps and this is why. Yeah.
Okay, that's exactly the way it works in Salt Lake County. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you going through that with me, Lenny, because I want to make sure nothing was different in Summit or Wasatch County. So where I'm doing all of this work the last day of August, Cheyenne, and putting the comps together and adding the pictures and sending and filling in the form and sending it in. Then months later, I'm probably going to have a hearing. The hearing, I've already done all my initial work, my pictures, everything else. So all I'm really working on prior to the hearing is I'll take an hour and I'm gonna look at their comps only. What the county used and compare them to what I used. And I'm gonna find ways, I hope, to make them understand that the comps I chose were more fair than the comps they chose. I'm gonna pick theirs apart. And they might have, and I've seen them do this, they might have used ones after January. They might have used ones that had a 3-car garage versus a 2-car garage. And they're saying, well, that's just a 5,000 adjustment. I'm like, yeah, from an appraiser's point of view, 5,000. To a buyer's point of view, it's a $20,000 difference. All day long, it's a $20,000 difference. So unless you're willing to give me 20,000, then you shouldn't be using 3-car garages compared to a 2. Okay, so that's the thing I'm having to now do on that one, is just refresh myself, looking at mine, comparing it to theirs, and trying to pick apart theirs. Okay?
Lee,
Yes, Kathy?
can I ask you a question or 2 questions, please?
Yes.
Regarding the statement that you just made about the garage, because I did protest a property in Salt Lake County a couple of years ago, and I tried to pick apples to apples. I went through properties inside and out, tried to pick something as close as possible, even though they were not down the street. They threw those out. They said, no, we don't care about that. They said it has to be within, I mean, they picked things that were the street over that had nothing, no resemblance to the home whatsoever. I mean, for example, they picked a home that was half, 50% of the square footage. And they said, we're just going to use the cost per square. Well, of course, you know, as
Smaller
as
square footage would have been a
Yes.
higher price per square.
Exactly. They also picked everything that had 3 and 4 car garages, even though this home did not. First question, where did you get the figure? Because they did the same thing. They said, oh, we're just going to deduct, you know, 7,500. And I thought, where in the hell are you going to find a contractor that can add on a garage for 7,500?
Yeah.
And so first of all, where did you get those figures? Do we have to call appraisers that we know? Or is there a program, or how did you come up with those figures? And then how did you combat, or I don't know if you've ever come up against that, by them not using something apples to apples, but more just down the street?
So those are good questions, Kathy. So if you look at any appraisals that you get on any of the properties that you're selling, and hopefully when you sell a house, you ask the buyers to share the appraisal with you when you're looking at those. So an appraiser typically will use 5,000 to maybe 7,500 per bay on an appraisal. That's legitimately what they use in Salt Lake County. I don't know what they do up here.
What do you mean per bay?
Right.
2 cars versus 3 cars, a different bank, an additional bank. But the way I know that it's really 20,000 is I sell a lot of real estate for 50 years. And so in the market that I work in, which is, you know, 5 counties, not yours, but 5 other counties, I know that a buyer will pay 20,000 for that. That's the real value, not the other. And you cannot say, Kathy, to them, you can't build a garage, because that's replacement cost. That's different than market value. Market is what people are willing to pay. So you may have to, you may have to pull some comps that show all of the ones that have 3-car garages are X number different than all the ones that have 2-car garages, to prove to them that that's not a $5,000 difference.
Okay.
And you won't always win, Kathy, at all. And the thing we want to do, and it's a tricky place to be in the hearing, these are nice people who, remember, they're not the ones making the decision. They're not the enemy. So I try to remember when I'm talking to them to come from curiosity and go, so I looked at your comps and I'm curious why the city would have chosen this one, or the county would have chosen this one. Can you explain why that happened? And so if I come that way, then they're more likely to then listen to why I'm not sure that would be the best choice. The lock 2 is, as Sarah said, who's Sarah? The one in the neighborhood. Block 2, the first ones anyone's gonna go to are the ones in the neighborhood, every time. So you better mentally prepare and physically with evidence prepare, because they're gonna choose the ones in the neighborhood first. So there has to be reasons why that doesn't make sense, and you have to be able to articulate and defend that in a way that is believable. And so
Yeah,
furniture worth 200,000 may be the reason.
No, I did that, but they kept coming up with the number one reason was location will surpass any other comp that you have apples to apples, even if it's a mile away.
So
That was
that
an-
may have just been the hearing officer that you happen to have that day.
Yeah,
I've not run into that in doing this for 40 years. It is their default to want to go to them first, but I have found them to be open to understanding why that may not be the only thing that you're looking at to make it a fair and reasonable comparison.
okay, thank you.
Okay? Yeah. Also, I had a client, Denise, the one that Richard Gordon sent me. I protested Denise's taxes 2 or 3 years, or probably 3 years ago. And she's a retired, now retired, but she was a police detective. And she said, can I go to the hearing with you? And I said, absolutely. And so we planned on that. And then I called her right back afterwards and I said, Denise, my defense to you in protesting these is that you were an idiot and you bought it for sale by owner and didn't have proper representation and had way more work than you ever realized you had in this house. This was Richard Gordon's old house. And I said, and I'm pretty sure you won't like it when I say in front of you that you were an idiot. She's like, you're right, I'll miss it. So she stated. And by the way, that defense worked that day. I was stretching, guys, because all the comps around it in Olympus Cove were a whole lot more, but she did buy a house. That's why I released the listing. There was so much work that needed to be done. Trying to get the price he wanted was pretty near impossible in my mind. So I released it to him to FISBO it. But she got into it and went, holy cow, there was so much work. And I didn't know her, so I couldn't advise her. But that worked that day with that hearing officer. Because I came with the facts of how much you had to put in for this, for the roof, how much you had to put in for this, how much before it was even. Okay, so you never know what it's gonna be, but you wanna be prepared for how you're gonna defend it. And you wanna do it in a way that is not me against her. Because her is not the problem. It's my fight is with the county. And she's not making the decision. So I've got to get her on my side. And the easiest way to do that is to start by coming from curiosity. And she may not know all the answers because she'll say, I'm not the one that chose those. I don't know. And I go, no, I figured you had. But so as I look at these, if you were sitting where I'm sitting and you had to find comps that were the same, would you have chosen that one versus these? And I'll tell her why. And she'll be like, leaning over going, boy, I can see that. That's what I'm going for. I need to get them leaning in with me, which is why I don't like Zoom. I like in person. Okay. But she doesn't know any more than me. She knows less than me. Or he. They do. And they're temporary employees who didn't do this work. They're going to quote, like Kathy's, quote that this was the reason why you chose that. And I'm going to have to say, you know, I've been selling real estate for like 50 years. You know, I'm old. But what I found with buyers, when they're asking to find a certain type of house, they never say to me, I have to be in X subdivision. They might say to me, I need to be on the southwest area. So they're not looking at just that neighborhood. They're looking at this area. So in fairness, the value is based on this area of homes, like the one they're looking for. And it looks like maybe the people who did the one for the county just said, oh, well, let's just take everything just in this neighborhood. Your buyer does that, and market value is established by what a buyer, a ready, willing, and able buyer is willing to pay, and they're willing to look at this area to do that. So I think when we're trying to do market, it seems to make sense to me that maybe we would look at houses that are really like their house in the area, not necessarily in this 2 blocks or this 1 block. Does that make sense to you? Yes. Oh, so that's kind of what I did.
You win.
The reality is ultimately Cheyenne still isn't the person that makes the decision, but Cheyenne is the one that writes up a recommendation. So I need to have Cheyenne on my side. And I need to be able to explain it in a way that Cheyenne is leaning in going, yeah, I get that. Okay? And you won't always win. You will not always win. Okay, but you're trying and your people are appreciative that you're trying. But you're more likely to win, I think, taking this path. Okay? All right. Let's look at the forms. So I showed you a copy of the Salt Lake County. And I feel bad for all you guys on Zoom because you don't have it. So where's the camera? You can't see that. Never mind. Hold on.
It looks just like our tax notice.
Okay, so you can see, oh yeah, looks like your tax notice. So you have to have that, the seller has to send you that. Not taking a picture, but emailed it to you, but you're gonna have to reprint it. And then you're going to go to the county and I am leaving my master here at this office. Okay, so that's this one right here. So anybody that's on Zoom, when you come in the office next, you're gonna need to ask Eva, for a copy of these documents so you have them, or you can go to Summit County or Wasatch County. Their website is not real user friendly. I had to go in like 3 or 4 times to get all my stuff that I needed for this class, so you're probably better off just getting a copy from here. So anyways, you're gonna do the request for redetermination of county decision. That's what you're going to fill out, okay? And typically, I think the top part you can do, there is one critical form that you also, besides the statement from the statement from the county, the bill from the county that we looked at, there is also an authorization to represent the owner. Okay, you have a copy of that. Authorization to represent the owner. That must be filled out and signed by your client. Now, truthfully, you can just pull 3 comps, Cheyenne, send that to your client, and tell your client, here's the form, go ahead and send it in. You could do that. That would be the easy, low service kind of way of doing it, where you can feel like you helped them a little, but they don't know how to do this, and they're scared to death the thought of going to a hearing. Scares most people. They're just not gonna do it. And by the way, most people should not defend themselves because they're gonna get in there and be emotionally, well, I can't see why you chose this one. I mean, they're owning it instead of working it. I want us to work it. So, but you could send 3 comps in that form and they could go ahead and send them in themselves. That would be the cheater way to do it. Right? Otherwise, you're going to get the authorization signed. You're gonna be the person of contact for this, and you're gonna send in the 3 comps with all of the pictures. Okay, question on that?
So we have 2 different things of paper here. One is yours, which is Salt Lake County.
Yeah, that was just an example.
Okay, and this one says states. You can use this for any county. Is that it? No. It says Utah State Tax Commission.
Oh, you're right. I put the wrong one. Okay, all right, so here's the update. You all have to go to the Summit County or the Wasatch County website, and it's actually, I don't think so. I think Park City, I can't talk about Wasatch, because I didn't look up Wasatch. But Park City uses the TC 194 form. That's that state form. That's what they're defaulting and using this year.
So you're putting, the representative information is you,
Yes,
so you would put, you know, Kathy Opolsky, Realtor
yeah,
there. So they
Yep.
know,
and your mailing address and your phone number and your email and all of that. That way, when the hearing and the good news that they reduced it or the bad news that they didn't, it all comes to you first. And then you're that go-between, but most importantly, you go to the hearing if you need to. Because I had a client, Ron, last year, that's in Bountiful. Ron is roughly 76 years old. Ron has been a government worker, analyst, overseas, brilliant man, but an analyst, all of his life. Okay, and he's never run. That's right, okay? And so he called to have me help him with the thing, and I got it all done. I said, "Do you want me to just go ahead and do?" "No, I'm gonna do it." Okay. Because Ron's never run. So I sent him all the stuff. And then it came time for a hearing, and I said, "Do you want me to go to the hearing for it?" No, I got this. Well, he can get a dime. And I'm pretty sure it was a nose to nose kind of conversation because it's wrong. Most sellers are either afraid or going to do themselves a disservice representing themselves in a hearing. That's the truth. So if you care about your clients, be willing to do the hearing. Like I said, even in the year I had 40 some, I did them all at one time. In one location, just went right through one after another. Just got through them all, okay? One day, okay? So not bad at all. All right, so you're gonna fill out these forms, you're gonna send them in, and then you're just gonna sit on your fingers and wait. I do tell all of my people when I make the call and let them know I've sent in the stuff to protest, that we are going to move forward with the protest, or if we weren't able to making that call. I tell them, you're gonna need to pay your taxes. They're not gonna contact me about this hearing or protesting or the results until probably after your due date on your taxes. It's a long time. So do pay your taxes. If we get a refund, they'll either send you a check or apply it to next year, whichever you choose, but do pay your property tax. You must tell them that, because otherwise they're like, waiting. They got an appeal coming up. They don't have to pay them. No. They must pay their tax on time. Okay? Question?
That was my question.
Oh, there you go. All right. So what's the deadline?
September 15th.
Okay. What do you send in to them prior to December 5th or September 15th?
Tax form.
Incomes.
And comps and photos.
Comps, crappy photos of your subject property.
Yep. And the authorization form.
Or via email, or via email.
Or via email. You can do it by email, you can do it by mail. And I typically do it by mail, and they're fat envelopes. And again, somewhere in my mind, I think they think, it's very hard on this, I better take it serious.
So
I have a question.
comps,
Hold on, John, just a second, go ahead.
comps. And then
Authorization form,
authorization
and then
form.
the request for
Okay,
redetermination. Go ahead, John.
thank you.
So I'm trying to appeal my own right now, but it's based off of my sale. Because all the comps are way higher than what I bought it for,
When did you buy it, John?
December 20th, 2023?
perfect.
Oh, hell, honey, you just send in a copy of your HUD settlement statement and fill out the redetermination form.
Okay.
That's
Cool.
all you've got to do.
And is that just like, will I have to argue it, or is that,
I do not believe you will have a hearing at all. I think you'll get it, I think you'll automatically get your redetermination.
cool?
Yeah, and you can send in a HUD settlement statement, anything from 2022 or 2023, about it in 2023, you can send in the HUD settlement statement that shows the price you paid. Or you can send in an appraisal, you don't have to send in both, one or the other, I go with whatever's less. So, yeah, and then that's kind of a no-brainer, they should automatically do that, because and if you were December, John, that is a week before they did the value.
Yeah.
Who's argue?
What was that?
I said, who could possibly argue with that?
Okay, yeah, true.
Okay, any other questions?
If you go as a new person trying in, you go to a hearing, is the worst thing that can happen if you fumble it, they say no?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the worst. I've never once in my life had them raise it.
Okay.
Never once.
That was my, that was my, uh-oh.
No, you can't do damage.
Okay,
You can't do damage.
okay, perfect.
And really think about it like presenting a CMA to a seller. And why he needs to be at a certain price.
So when somebody says, can they, if they can't find comps, you can't find comps, but they think that they can get an appraiser to write an appraisal that's less, can they pay for an appraiser? Can they just send in an appraiser's official?
Yes.
One appraiser, if they want to gamble that money and spend that money,
They
if
could.
it happens to be less, they can send that in, regardless of when it's sold or when
Yeah.
how long they've had it.
Yes, but the reality is that county is still gonna look at what were the three the appraiser used, 4 or 5, and what were the ones we had. So doesn't automatically mean, but honestly, for John, his HUD settlement statement, he paid what he paid.
He's a bottom feeder, John is.
Yeah,
Good job, good job.
Close in December?
Yeah, he got a good price. Yeah.
By the way, John, that'll only work one time in 2024. After that, you're back with all the rest of us doing the hard work.
No, no way. So they can, the next year, they can just bump me back up to the neighborhood
The
price?
next year, they can reevaluate every year. They
Okay.
can.
Well, I'll get a year out of
So,
it.
yeah, like it while you got it.
Lee, does that work for properties closed in 2024?
Probably not, but when because they were supposed to establish the value in January. So let's ask the question, when in 24 did they buy it?
We closed, I believe it was around April, May. I can't remember.
I would certainly find my 3 comps and I would include a HUD settlement statement on the property. I
Okay.
can get away. Are they telling me that prices have gone up since May that much?
Hmm.
I could argue that, once I see their comps, is she did actually pay this amount in May. I get that that was before, but are you telling me prices have gone up that much since or come down that much since she paid for it? So I could argue that, but it wouldn't be it would be in addition to my 3 comps. It wouldn't be a standalone.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
when you're protesting, do you know, does it matter if it's on the cash or if it was financed?
No, now, I may use cash as a defense on one of mine or one of theirs, but for what they establish value, no, it should not. Okay. Any other questions? So now that you know what you need to send in, which almost is always the form, the 3 comps along with all the pictures.
All your little notes on them.
And all my notes, mine look like frat size. When I'm done, there's writing all over it, looks like crap. And then the authorization form by September 15th. Set aside 1 day in August, the end of August, to do it. So do them all at one time, don't do a little here, a little there, Just get in the mode and just 1 day, do everything you have. But most importantly, make the phone call. Not the email, not the text, make the phone call. At least to your A+ people. Because it's a big deal that you're willing to help. You get nothing for this. And you're initiating a way to potentially save them, like I said, for me, an average of $400. So I
There would be a lot more, probably.
and in many cases, it can be. In many cases, it can be. Any of you do a geographic farm area? So I live in a HOA. Any of you live in an HOA? Okay, I live in an HOA. So there have been years in my HOA where on a Saturday morning, the end of August, I do an invite from 8 to 10. I'm supplying the donuts. Come on down to the clubhouse. I'll help you fill out the form and we'll protest your taxes. So if you find a year that yours is high, You can bet your neighbors are all high. So put together an event. I mean, it took me 2 hours and I did 40 some people. Because it's all the same comps.
Oh, that's valid.
Yeah, mine are all the same comps. Now, if you have 3 or 4 different styles of homes, your sizes of homes, but really in most homes, there's not huge differences in a neighborhood. There might be, but for me, that was so simple to do. And they all remember that I did that part, and I got them, every one of them got it, every one.
I feel like up here, the HOA, people don't live, like, I live in an area where we have an HOA, but most of those people, there's hardly anyone who actually lives in Bear Hollow. They're all investors, so they don't live there. But I could send out an email.
You could send out an email to all of them and
Host a
say,
Zoom.
post a Zoom, yeah. I think doing a, post a Zoom or doing a video that you send out to them. And your neighbor in Bear Hollow. My name is Cheyenne. I also happen to be a realtor and I just got my tax notice. Holy cow. I'm protesting my tax notice and I'd be happy to help you do that free of charge for anybody who went, holy cow, when they opened up their tax notice. So call me directly if you want me to protest your taxes for you to get free of charge.
And if they say, well, what's the catch? You go, look, there's no catch. If you happen to know anybody that's buying or selling real estate, I'm happy if you refer to me.
Well, I'm just gonna say, I'm doing my own, it doesn't take me a whole lot of extra work to do yours. And yeah, I am a realtor, so remember that in the future, would you? And then later, I'm going to say, when they say I can't thank you enough, later in the process, I'm gonna say, oh, yes, you can. Let me tell you how. I'm gonna teach them how, okay? All right, no other questions? Thank you all for coming, Bob. I'm leaving the master, and so all of my Zoom folks, I know for sure John needs it, because he's protesting his out. All of my folks are gonna need this, and the site isn't real friendly. So, can I leave this? I'll just leave this with you. This is your county, and I don't.
Do you want these back, Lee?
No, that's okay. That just gives you an example.
All right.
I did, everybody, and I think Robin, they were, I think we were about to participated.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you attending.
All right, what's next? Is this room coming up? Randall, is you teaching at?
Oh, 1.
1 o'clock, so you're having to go to lunch, and then you're coming back to, Albany once.
Michael, I don't know about my
Good.